I looked at the schedule tonight, and this says, well, we've got an hour. And I don't think I have an hour's worth of presentation for you, and I certainly don't want to bore you that long. We were asked to come tonight and talk about vocations of marriage, vocations of ordination, and sexuality. That's quite a combination. And in such a short time, cover all the basics. But what we decided to do is, Kayla and I were going to kind of keep switching off. We'll talk about vocations for each, and then we'll hopefully at the end of the night give you some time to ask questions, okay? I'm going to begin my early presentation about calling and vocation first, because I think that's very important. I truly believe in my faith, as my faith journey has gone forth throughout my life. I truly, truly believe that God has a plan for each and every one of us, whether we think He does or not, or in our lives and how busy we get, we don't think about that very often. But I truly believe that after the 66 years that God has allowed me to be on this earth, that is so true. I thought I would begin tonight with sharing a few things that I was taught in seminary about the sacrament of marriage, the vocation of marriage, and these were things that I wrote down so that I wouldn't forget them at my age, but also these are the things that mean a lot to me about what our church teaches about that sacrament. And it goes like this. The church describes marriage as a contract between baptized persons of the opposite sex, by which each acquires the exclusive and irrevocable right over each other's bodies until death of one of the parties. Now, we could talk about that for a long time. How many of you in here are married? Because there's several vocations, as we know, the single life, the married life, the religious life. Okay, most of you are. Are there any single people here tonight? Okay. The marriage is actually a contract. It's a unity between the spouses, and it is supposed to be for your life until death do us part. God is the author of the sacrament of marriage. He truly is. It's part of God's plan for each and every one of us if we allow God to enter into our lives to have that plan. The sacrament of marriage refers back to the creation story and being created for one another. God willed this for all of us from the very, very beginning. I believe that there are two primary responsibilities or purposes for couples in marriage. The first purpose, the main purpose, I believe, is a sanctification. Sanctification meaning that each one of us, our main goal is to help each other through our marriage to get to heaven. Because we are all called to be holy. But the first goal in a marriage, whether we've been taught that or not, is to help each other get to heaven. To help us live that life of holiness. The second purpose is to be open and freely open to children always. The church wants lots and lots of Catholics. And those are the two purposes, the way the church describes marriage. I will go on to say that in our experience, or at least I can answer in my experience of marriage, I believe that marriage is never perfect. Any of you that are married might admit to that or after a little bit of period of time. I don't believe it's ever perfect. But I do believe that our God can help us to get close to holiness and perfection as that's possible on this earth, if we allow Him into each and every one of our lives. I thought if I could get Kayla to hold this for me a little bit, I wanted to read for you, forgive me for this, but because I'm a deacon now and I don't know how many marriages I've witnessed over the years now, but there's two parts of the marriage rite that I think are so important. And what I did was I chose, first of all, you get to, if you ever remember getting prepared for marriage, you had this book and you got to choose the things that you wanted to have as part of your rite, with the right scriptures that you chose that had a great meaning to you. But I wanted to talk about the two things that are probably the most important in the marriage rite, according to the church. And it goes like that. The first is the questions of intent. And I've chosen my favorite. And it goes like this. My dear friends, you have come together in the church so that the Lord may seal and strengthen your love in the presence of the church minister and this community. Christ abundantly blesses this love. He has already consecrated you in baptism and now enriches and strengthens you by a special sacrament so that you may assume the duties of marriage in mutual and lasting fidelity. And so in the presence of the church, I ask you to state your intentions. And the two people will be asked these questions. First question that you must say yes to, which touches my heart so deeply. Have you come here freely and without reservation to give yourself to each other in this marriage? And the second question is, will you love and honor each other as man and wife for the rest of your lives? And to go along with it, it concludes with, will you accept children lovingly from God and bring them up according to the laws of Christ in His church? And you must say yes to those questions, or the witness of the marriage cannot go further. Think about that for a moment. The other part of the marriage rite, besides the vows, and you get to choose the vows that you wish, and these are the ones I would choose. Again, I can't remember if we chose these or not, or something similar. And it would ask the husband first, I so-and-so ask so-and-so to be my wife. I promise to be true to you in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, and I will love you and honor you all the days of your life. So you must ask the two questions, and then you exchange your vows to each other. And I think those things are so beautiful. And those are the things that I remember the most about our marriage. Now, as a deacon, the church says that this is very important as well, and it talks about the nuptial blessing. If I've lost my place now. Here's one. My brothers and sisters, let us ask God for this continued blessing upon this bridegroom and this bride. Then they take a moment for prayer. And then the priest or the deacon goes on to say, Holy Father, creator of the universe, maker of man and woman in your own likeness, source of blessing for the married life, we humbly pray to you for this bride, who today is united with her husband in this bond of marriage. May your fullest blessing come upon her and her husband, so that they may together rejoice in your gift of married love. May they be noted for their good lives. And it goes on to say, Lord, may they both praise you when they are happy and turn to you in their sorrows. May they be glad that you help them in their work and know that you are with them in their need. May they reach old age in the company of their friends and come at last to the kingdom of heaven. Amen. And I think that is so powerful. And you get to choose from about 4 of those which matches you as a couple. Now that I've gone through all of that about marriage, that means a lot to me, I would like to begin my vocation talk by making one simple statement. I don't believe I thought hardly anything about any of those things I said when Kayla and I got married almost 46 years ago at Sacred Heart. I remember the vows meaning a lot to me. I remember how important it was that we got married in the church. But I assure you through our dating, I don't believe those things that I mentioned today were truly in my mind. In defense of the church, they did not have back then the preparation that they have now for our people when they decide that they want to get married in the church. Again, I want to repeat, I believe God has a plan for each and every one of us. I certainly, going through high school, didn't think that we would get married so young, but that was the norm at the time. Most young people back in the 60s got married usually in their very early 20s, where the norm today is in their late 20s or sometimes even early 30s, with the experience that I have as witnessing marriages today. So you can see the culture has changed in a lot of ways. But I will say this, I do believe that God put Kayla in my life as an instrument in my faith life, even when I didn't recognize it. I met Kayla at an underage drinking party at Drake University on a Friday night. But I will tell you this, the night I met her, once I started talking to her, there was plenty of alcohol around. I don't think Kayla and I were much into drinking, and there was a lot of beer there, but I don't remember liking beer then, and I don't really like beer that much now. But I do remember we spent most of the evening together talking. And I only made one mistake that night when I left that party. When I got back in the car with my twin brother and 3 of my closest friends, I made the mistake of saying to them in the car, "You guys are going to laugh at me, but I think I just met the girl that I think I want to marry someday." And boy, was that a bad thing to say to your twin brother and your friends, but it's a true story. And I believed it then, and I still believe it now, that this was part of God's plan for me. As far as making our plans for marriage, I wanted God in our life, but my idea of having God in our life was to go to Mass on Sunday and then spend the rest of the week, each week, serving each other and taking care of one another and supporting one another, whether it was financially or emotionally. That was what I remember most about our first year and a half of marriage. I was saying to Kayla on the way over that I believe that first year and a half of our marriage was probably, I'm not supposed to say that one year was happier than the other, but I really can reflect that year and a half was probably one of the most beautiful, most fun years in our entire life together. And I would never take that back. Just getting to know each other better and learning to grow up a little bit more. You got a lot of growing up to do when you're 20 and 18 and a half, almost 19, when we got married. So I believe that, as far as children, we talked about having lots of children. And we have been blessed. We've been blessed with 4 children, 3 boys and 1 girl. And now we've really been blessed with 9 grandchildren. And that's another story for another day. But why I wanted to say that, I remember when we were first talking about marriage and after we started having children, we talked about, I thought it would be great to have at least as many kids as you need for a hockey team. Again, I planned and God laughed. But, those are the things we talked a lot about, for a long time, that we'd probably have the largest family we could have. But God gave us 4, and we're grateful for those 4. I believe over the years, our faith has been so enriched. And I believe we both have encouraged each other and helped each other as God became more and more important in our lives and our church became more and more important in our lives. I believe that is because of God helping each other realize that He needs to be in our life for us to be happy. I think it's time for me to allow Kayla some time to reflect on our call to marriage as well. So, go ahead.
Okay, well, and this is all I'm going to say tonight. Mine will be short. But I'll say when I first heard about this and what I was supposed to do tonight, and I read Faye's email and it said, talk about your vocational call to marriage. And the first words that came to my mind were words of my little granddaughter who said, I don't know nothing, Grandma. I don't know nothing about that. And I said, I really don't understand. What are you supposed to say here? And Bill said, just tell your story, and your vocation will come out through that. And so as I thought about it, I thought, you know what, it really did. So I'm just going to quickly tell my little story. 5 minutes is all I'm going to take. But I think that the vocation will come out in that. I grew up here in West Des Moines and in a Protestant family, all girls. And then, as you know, I met Bill and we got engaged. And as we were talking about getting married, it came up when and where. And Bill just said 2 words to me: I'm Catholic. End of conversation. I'm Catholic. 2 very powerful words, because I knew behind those words were hundreds of years of tradition and conviction and faith. But there was more to them than that, because it was his identity. There was identity in those words, I'm Catholic. It wasn't what he was, it was who he was. And something inside me said, I want that too. I want that. I want that for myself. I want it for my children. I want it for my grandchildren. So I became Catholic. And I went to classes much different than what you have here. I hope you thank God every day for the blessing of the program that you have here. Here's what I did. I went to 6 weeks of classes once a week. The priest handed me a book. He said, read the first chapter, come back next week. So I came back next week. He said, did you read the chapter? Yeah. You have any questions? No. Okay, read the second chapter and come back next week. 6 weeks of that, I was Catholic. I knew nothing about my faith. Very, very little. But that's all right, because that came later. So we were married. We had, as he said, we had a family. We had 4 children, 3 boys, and thank you for that. 3 boys were really hard for me growing up in a family of girls. I spent most of my child rearing years with this look on my face. And Bill standing behind me saying, it's normal, it's normal. And I'm just thinking, this is not normal. These boys are not normal. But they were, but it was just not something I was ever used to. And so we raised them in the faith, and that was hard. It really was. It was all those years of battling, going to Mass, and it's the seemingly endless years of religious education and all that. It wasn't easy, but something here said, that's okay, it's good. Hang in there, keep doing it. So I did, and they grew up fast. And when my youngest was in high school, I kind of branched out a little bit and became a part-time director of religious education at St. John's Basilica. And a couple years later, a friend of ours literally pushed me through the door to an interview for a full-time director of religious education job at St. Mary's, which I didn't get. And I was pretty disappointed. But 3 or 4 months later, one came up at Sacred Heart, which I did get. And it was so much better because it was 5 minutes away. It was the church where we were married. It was the place where we'd raised our kids. So it was wonderful. I thought, good, I can do this. I can really do this. And then the priest said to me, well, I need you to go back to school and get your certificate in theology while you're working and still have kids at home. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm fine. I can do this. So I did. Started back to school, and then I found out that in the year and a half or 2 years before I came to Sacred Heart, they'd been through 8 DREs. 8. And there was a reason for that. And I remember going to Mass every morning and kneeling down saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. But, you know, something inside said, it's good. It's good. You can do this. So I did. I finished school. And I just was able to draw a deep breath and was about to exhale when Bill said, I'd like to be a deacon. And that means I have to go to school for
Almost 4
4
years.
years, once a month, not even here in Des Moines, got to travel to Conception Seminary in Missouri, and then also another weekend of the month, go to school here, and retreats, and oh, and by the way, you have to go with me. Okay, no. No. This time I almost didn't listen to that little voice inside that said, this is good, you can do this. No. I can't do 4 more years of school. But that little voice, it just kept after me, and he dropped it for a while, he brought it back up, he said, what do you think? I didn't respond gracefully to the little voice. This time it was more like, fine. But I went. And we went for 4 years, and it did turn out to be one of the biggest blessings in my life. I learned more about my Catholic faith there than anywhere else. And that little voice inside, I was glad I listened to it. And I guess that's what I want to say, that the vocational call to anything is not, at least it wasn't for me, a big thunderclap. It was through the years more like a leading and a following. And that little voice inside, of course, was God, who kept saying, go this way. It's good. You can do it. And I think that finding a vocation isn't that hard if we're willing to listen to that little voice, because we all have it, and then walk in it, and maybe even find our identity in it the way that Bill did when he said to me all those years ago, I'm Catholic. Well, I'm a daughter, and I'm a wife, and I'm a mother, and I'm a grandmother, and that's my vocation, and I'm Catholic.